how are you changing your plans to go address that?
Those things affected a lot our strategy that was defined back in 2019, as I mentioned, right? We knew that third-party data was doomed to death. Since then, everybody knew if anyone not approaching that situation was only postponing a reality, right? What Apple did with IDFA also is something that, to be very honest, on a consumer perspective here, I don't like to be tracked when I don't know that I'm being tracked. I really appreciate that Apple now allows me to choose if I want tracked or not. And as a group of brands that we are at AB InBev, since the beginning we didn't we wanted to make sure that we didn't rely on trackings that were not going to be, one, everlasting, and two, that could be disrupted either by regulations or by the right initiatives from the platforms. I'm expecting that Android follows the same path at some point. And we were expecting that since much before. When all the industry started to discuss about the impact and what was going to happen, our position was we support. Apple's doing the right thing. So as they are asking consumers the permission to track and to share the data with other apps, we ask consumers if they want to share the data with us, and on a very openly and candid way, not only on the cookie level, the bars, the consent management bars that every site needs to have right now, but whenever you join a promotion or you become a member of our rewards program, we are very explicit to say that's what you're going to do with your data. That's the benefits that you have, and that's why we need that data for, right? And consumers needs to have the transparency to be able to choose if they want or not to share the data with us.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I think it sounds like yourself. I'm happy to share my data as long as I know what it's being used for and I get benefit from it. And so it's great to hear that AB InBev is sort of thinking about your relationship with consumers that way too. Fantastic. In terms of, if we go back to sort of your media mix, as you go and activate on the customer data, has that changed? Say since before 2019. Sort of through 2019 when you got your overarching strategy and through today, especially, in lights of changing consumer behavior as well as the privacy stuff. Has that changed at all? What does that look like for you?
First of all, the media overall is becoming more and more digital, right? Connected TV, the ability to buy valuable video inventories, digital out of home. So at some point you'll be able, and every advertiser will be able to leverage data much better, being first, second, or third-party data, than we were in the past, not only on the digital channels, but what we used to call the traditional channels. That's one fold. The second one is our priority is always driving the best net revenue contribution for the company from media, right? How we drive better ROI, how we improve our efficiency, how we better manage our vehicle mix and cost to be able to contribute to our business growth. So if a digital channel is driving better ROI, of course, we're going to move more money to that channel over the time. Same thing with consumer data, right? We already proved and validated across the organization in many, many countries that using first-party data while you control a potential increase on CPM drives much higher ROI for our organization.
Makes sense.
So of course, we when we see better results when you use first-party data on digital or digitized media channels, our tendency is to drive more money towards those channels. So overall, yes, our digital media mix is increasing, not only because more channels are being digitized, because we're seeing higher ROI and even better attention in some of them, and also we are increasing at a faster pace the investment where we can use external first and third party data because we see higher ROI.
Great. And what do you think drives that higher ROI? Is it more that digital lends itself to more, say, efficient use of data, I guess, than other mediums, or do you think it's able to be measured better, or some combination of the two?
It's a combination, right? Because at first, I'm able to target the right consumers and the people that has more similarities with them. So I'm avoiding a lot of waste by targeting people that are not my potential category buyers. In the past, we used to focus our targeting on what we call LDA, legal drinking age population. But if you look to the US, for example, 40% of the adult population in the US don't drink beer. So why would I be targeting them?
Right.
So having third-party data that shows me that you are a potential category buyer, or that allows me to build a lookalike for people that are potentially category buyers, that's really valuable for me. Second, within each audience, I can personalize my content much better, right? I'll give a broad example. When you talk about Michelob Ultra, the second largest beer brand in the US and one of the fastest growing brands in the country, we invest behind a plethora of passion points like NBA, golf, music, urban sports. If you are someone passionate about NBA, it's great that I can deliver a creative that is about the soccer, the basketball team you support on the night of your game, potentially reminding you that that is a great moment to buy a beer. If you are someone that does urban sports but don't like NBA or NFL, and I'm able to target with the right creative, I have a much better chance of appealing to you and influence you to buy one of our brands. And of course, we close the loop with the measurement, because if I'm targeting the people that I know, even if I need to model that and target on an anonymous base, I have the feedback loop that out of those 5 million people that never bought my brand before, based on the third-party data that I brought from the outside, now 10% of them bought after being targeted by my campaign. So it enables me to not only to improve the targeting and the creative, but also to understand performance and go beyond the MROI and start talking about cost of acquisition, consumer lifetime value, things that were not at our access in the CPG world, besides when we do e-commerce.
Makes sense. Yeah, Luiz, you've described sort of the marketer's holy grail here of, finding the right people, delivering the right message, and be able to validate that you've created a result. And you've made it sound so easy. So, I really appreciate that. So that's great. As you look forward to 2022, thinking about your initiatives there, how do you see what you guys are focusing on in 22 and how that's different from 2021 in terms of strategic initiatives that you're driving?
As I mentioned before, the first use case that we defined as priority for our data strategy was media efficiency, right?
Yep.
How we could be more data-driven within our media buying, planning, and optimization. But now we are moving towards a new stage where, besides of evolving on that journey, because it sounds simple, but you know that is not, right?
Right.
Now we are starting to go after a second big use case, which is how we use consumer data to have a deeper understanding of consumer, understand better the consumption barriers, motivation, so we can drive better insights for our brand positioning, for our brand creative, for our portfolio allocation strategy. That's a big and bold dream. We've benchmarked with several companies, and it doesn't seem that anybody cracked the code on how to do that yet. We have some very promising early stage results with people-based consumer segmentation using external third-party data here in the US, for example, with Epsilon, which is our data partner, but augmenting the data with NCS and other geolocation vendors, for example. They're expanding that to several countries around the world next year. And that enables us to do something that is an ambitious goal that we have, that we call internally like one audience to rule them all, right? What is the situation right now? Your insights and strategy team on every company runs some research to understand who are the consumers, what is the demographic breakdown, what are their passion points, consumption barriers, but based on a very narrow consumer base that is statistically valid. Then you go to your media agency and they use another panel, not the same one that your strategy and insights team used before, like TGI or M1 in the case of Dentsu, our media agency here in the US, to create the media planning. Then when you are about to create your audiences, you go to third-party vendors, the second-party data available on the platform, second-party data available on marketplaces, your first-party data. And then when you go to measurement, you buy a solution from an external company like RI, NCS, Nielsen, or you have your own MMM methodology. But by the end, it's never the same audience. You're always using different cuts of statistically valid samples that goes from 2 to 40,000 people. Now, when we move towards a people-based consumer segmentation, we can have this approach that the same base of real consumers with real transactions, with real behavior that we collected or we access through the industry is the same one that we use to create the audiences, the same one that we use to target people, the same one that we use to measure. So we bring a much more precision to the whole cycle, and it enables us to have a much deeper, not only way of understanding consumers, but understanding the performance of what we did.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Wow, that's very powerful. And I guess, you know, in terms of how you got here, what was maybe the biggest hurdle you had to overcome, or maybe think of it another way. You know, if you're to go back in time to 2019 and tell yourself, you know, this is something that, you know, you're going to watch out for, or you're going to learn here that you didn't think about coming into this, you know, was there anything in particular that you really had to overcome there?
First, we are a traditional marketeer, right? We know how to do creative very well. We know how to work brand positioning very well. Although a lot of the things that we are discussing here are new to the more traditional businesses, right? Mainly the ones that doesn't have a direct connection with consumers. We talk about retail, D2C, and even automotive and telecom. They have data for much longer than we do. They have a direct relationship with consumer from many different channels. Our reality was an advertiser that rent eyeballs. At first, how to be more effective on renting those eyeballs was a big priority. And we knew, and it was very fast to get the full buy-in of the whole organization. But the execution of that is the big challenge. You need to align not only the incentives, but also the knowledge with your internal team, your creative agents, your media agents, onboarding partners, and all those things are not seamless to do, right? If you're onboarding a data partner, even my area, right? When we started the consumer data team within the global marketing organization, and then we expanded to other countries, we were an alien, right? We were where data participates on the process. When I should access data. I've been the team have been able to work without the consumer data team since we do marketing at the company. So how we ensure that we review the process, that we add real and perceived value for the brands, right? Because it's very easy to go to a brand and say, hey, now you have a consumer data acquisition target, and now you have a target of using that data on media impressions. But that's one thing. The other thing is when they understand what is the value of doing that, right? I always say it's not about acquiring consumer data. It's about understanding what you want to know from consumers and building a strategy that enables you to acquire that information. But that information comes usually as a consumer data record, but could come through web analytics, could come through sophisticated social listening that we could do. But again, we need to understand what we want to understand, what is going to make the difference for our brands, and mainly for our consumers, and how to socialize the value of that across the organization.
Yep. Yeah, and I think definitely, you know, one thing that resonates with me is the idea that you have to get buy-in internally on this. You're sort of teaching an elephant to dance, I think, in a lot of these cases where, you know, it's something that's new for the organization, and it sounds like you've done a tremendous job of both understanding that is a challenge and addressing it, you know, and sort of moving the organization along at the speed that everybody's comfortable with. So that's fantastic.
One thing that I always use as an anecdote internally is 15 years ago, when digital was starting to become a thing within the marketing industry, we had digital departments, right? Usually the company hired heads of digital or chief digital officers. They build a structure for them. They started to collaborate with the brands. They started to collaborate with media, with sales. And over the time, I don't know many big organizations that still have a digital department, right? Digital became a core competency of any marketeer, of any salesperson. And if you go to an interview nowadays saying, no, I'm a traditional marketeer, I only do above the line, you're not going to get a good job really on a leading company. Data is the same. I expect that my area at some point is going to be relevant for the organization, because the technology was built, the knowledge was shared, the people that are working within our data teams are going to start to spread across the organization and have brand roles, media roles, insights roles, as the digital people had in the past. So it's a journey, and I always use that to give some incentive, but also to push our teams to say, guys, it's either you learn or you're going to become obsolete at some point.
Yeah, exactly. You know, all the dinosaurs went extinct eventually. So yeah. Great. Well, Luiz, I think this has been fantastic. You know, I feel like I've been interrogating you a little bit with rapid fire style here, but maybe one last fun question. So I'm in the streaming TV business, and so for you, are you binge watching anything right now? Are you streaming anything that you're excited about?
Yeah, well, Billions just restarted, so I'm very excited. I'm a big fan also of the Marvel content, so watching What If at Disney Plus. And counting the seconds for the launch of Foundation on Apple TV this Friday. My favorite author, my favorite set of books. I've been waiting for Foundation to be on the screens, I don't know, since I was 15. So Friday is going to be a big day for me.
There you go. Yeah, it's I'm right there with you on Foundation. My only determination is, do I wait till 12:01 a.m. Friday morning, or do I wait till I'm done with work Friday evening? So that's big decisions to be made this week. So, well, fantastic. I think we are opening up for questions to the audience now. I don't know if our panel helpers will help me with that. But like I said, you know, this is a fantastic conversation.
Thank you. Really, really pleasure to be here.
Great. All right. Well, let's see. All right. Well, so all right. So I'm going to say, if we can open it up to questions for the audience now, that'd be great. If not, because it doesn't look like maybe it's open yet or not.
I'm seeing a question here. What are our favorite cross-screen measurement tools? Actually, our US team, our US data and media team together, they developed cross-measurement reach model, an internal one that we're using. So we combine data from different sources, from our agency to external partners, to make sure that we can do cross-reach planning. That was a transformational movement for us in the US, and now we are replicating that to other countries around our organization.
Great. And another question from the audience, Luiz, is who do you work with in identity and the various markets, if it's different?
Our global and US data partner is Epsilon. So even though we have many different data providers and vendors, it always goes through them.
Great. And in terms of, have you guys, has there been any sort of in 2019, clearly you had the single unified view of the consumer. Did you build all that in-house? Do you have any specific data partners beyond, I guess, Epsilon that you had to work with to go make some of those decisions?
We use several different MarTech platforms, but we understand that technology is a core competency of our business when we talk about consumer data. I always say is that we treat consumer data the same way we treat a brewery, right? It's an asset that it costs money to build, that we need to keep investing behind to make sure it's updated, it's valuable, it's efficient. And if you don't treat it and invest properly behind it, the value is going to deprecate over time. So since that's an important asset and something that we consider a core competency, we decide that needs to be internalized. So we have a very strong collaboration with our IT MarTech team, with our analytics team. We work as a single hub where the strategy that we define for the organization is followed through execution, resources, platforms, and that was a very important achievement for us to ensure that we could build that internally.
Great. In terms of budgets over the last year, have budgets, I guess, increased or decreased for you? Because I know depending on your brand, that there may be a different answer there. And if they've decreased, have you had to do anything, specifically more creative, I guess, to deal with that while still getting results?
During the peak of COVID on first half of last year, of course, we held a lot of investment, right, to make sure that we were deploying the money on the right way towards the right initiatives. We redeployed a lot of our investment to support communities, to create new platforms for consumers, because imagine on the entertainment side, people that were used to hang out with friends, go to shows, to go to bars and restaurants, they out of the blue were stuck at home, right? So how we could bring entertainment to their homes. So with Brazil, for example, we did more than 700 live streams with musicians. I don't know any company, not even Live Nation probably, that produced more shows than we did in 2020. But of course, that required a lot of redeployment of our investment. So shifting money from media to production, from sponsorship to donation. We built hospitals, we donated face shields. We even converted the alcohol that we extract from our non-alcohol beer production to do hand sanitizer across over 20 countries. So we did a lot of changes within our marketing package last year. This year was I can say that it was around a flat investment from 2019 and very close to what we did in 2020. But of course, last year, what we were measuring, what were our priorities, and even our internal process was a major change. And as our former US CMO, Marcel Marcondes, likes to say, we don't want to go back to normal. We want to go to somewhere better, right? Not only as a society, but also as an organization and as we work at marketing. So there were several big changes on how we work and how we allocate our budget.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, I think that's a great story about how you adapt to the consumer behavior changes and redeployed your marketing budget accordingly. Sort of like 700 live streams. That's mind-boggling. I'm glad I wasn't involved in producing those. I think I would have maybe had a panic attack trying to do that many. But yeah, that's a fantastic story.
We had over 1 billion views on those live streams.
That's phenomenal.
90-something% of them, the vast majority came from organic audience.
Wow, that's tremendous results. And I guess along those lines, what sort of KPIs do you measure, and beyond just sales? What are the key ones that you're looking at on your team to go measure success?
On the data and media teams, there are several KPIs that are mean KPIs, and some of them are end KPIs. Of course, net revenue contribution for media. The output of media ROI is really critical for us, right? We have a very solid internal model that we've been developing and evolving massively since 2018, if I'm not mistaken. It changed from an annual model to a quarterly cycle that took 4 months to taking around 15 days after we have all the data available. Now we are automating our we built a tool that recommends the ideal allocation by brand, considering seasonality, considering the stage of the brand and stage of the market. Now we're moving this model not only to a monthly model, but also to what we're calling a unified measurement model that also encompasses direct to consumer, driving traffic to points of sale that we have around the world. So it was a very sophisticated work that we did by the end to be able to show the incremental net revenue media generates for the business and the ROI, not only per channel, but per format and per specific campaign. That's one thing. The other, and talking more about the mean KPIs, we measure very close what we call media principles. We codified through our analytics team what is the right reach that we should have for each brand on each market and on each region. What is the minimum qualifying weeks on air? So if you are familiar, if anyone is familiar to the work that Byron Sharp does, we are very focused on ensuring that the time that we go out of air doesn't hurt sales on the long run, right? That was a major discussion and a major need that we had last year during the peak of COVID, for example. We measure access reach and access frequency within media principles because we validated that reaching above a certain threshold is a waste of money. Your ROI starts to flatten or to go down. Same thing, there's an optimal frequency that we should have, otherwise a waste, or you are not building the message under reaching the audience. We're talking a lot about what we call qualified audiences. So what's the percentage of our media buying that uses first, second, and third party data? And mainly what is the data value ROI? So what is the difference of the ROI when you use first, second, or third party data? And we're getting more granular and more sophisticated on that. We are measuring consumer records acquisition. So how much data our brands, new consumer records our brands are acquiring, new attributes that we are bringing to the single view of the consumer to make sure we keep enriching and knowing more about who we're talking to. We have some interesting work stream around media attention, which for us is super relevant because it connects to another important KPI for the organization around brand equity, right? But we're getting more sophisticated, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we have very clear KPIs to align across our agencies, our different areas in the organization. And the enablers of those KPIs are more focused on the specialists and the people driving the day-to-day.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So there two things you said that I want to drill down on because they're both things that I hear many other advertisers and brands ask me about all the time. I guess the first one is in terms of your work around determining, sort of optimal frequency or minimum frequency to get your message out. How did you do that research? Like, I think the answer is going to be different depending on across many different advertisers and brands because the nature of the thing that they're trying to sell or induce action about. But how did you do the research and measurement to determine, okay, this is the range of the number of times we need to touch somebody in a week to get them to buy more adult beverages?
The beautiful thing about having an internal MMM and a dedicated analytics team, we have over 75 people on our global analytics center, fully dedicated to run our MMM, to evolve our MMM, and to run the analysis together with our media teams across the organization. So, and we've been doing that since 2018. We have data before 2018 as well. So, so we had a lot of historical data to be able to codify, build the models and validate what is the ideal frequency, what's the ideal reach that we should have for the stage of the brand, for specific markets, for the stage of the market itself. So we have this advantage that we don't need to buy ad hoc studies that are going to become obsolete. Like our media principles, they evolve every single week. Right? We're refining them over and over.
Gotcha. And second piece that I wanted to ask you, and the answer is probably it's hard and it takes a lot of work, which is kind of probably the answer to most things. But if you're talking to a brand that's maybe sort of like the old AB InBev that is a well-known brand, but doesn't have a direct relationship to consumer, but needs to go build that and to get that data that's, direct consumer data that's necessary for them to go market effectively. What are some things that have worked for you guys that you would suggest, all right, go investigate this? And the answer may be, produce 700 live streams. But what's worked best, and what are some things you'd suggest to another brand in a similar scenario?
So that's one of the reasons why digital products is a big part of our strategy, right? We want to build those products to be able not only to acquire consumers and build a direct relationship with them, but also to add real value, right? Because let's remember, overall, of course, we strive to have the best beers, the best liquids. Our innovation team is super focused on bringing new things to the market. But the beer after you drink, it's over, right? You need to buy it again. When I establish a channel that I can have a relationship with the consumers, that I don't rely on media alone to be able to reach out to them, to getting to know them better, that brings a deeper consumer understanding. It enables us to offer services and experiences that goes beyond our brands, right? So I'll give you one example that was really successful. We launched a consumer rewards platform that most people like to call loyalty, but as I said, we don't believe that there is loyalty in our category or on CPG. There's preference, and we need to work on that preference over and over again, maintaining the mental availability. When I have the direct access to you, I can work on that mental availability. I know exactly how many times I impacted you, which messages resonated better, which applications and which services are making you more interested in my brand. I can reward you for that. So for example, Colombia and US and China are the countries that we are more evolved on our consumer rewards program. We have over 40 million members around the world, which is very sizable. Of course, China is a big chunk of that because of the size of the country. We're expanding it to other countries now, but whenever you join and become a member of our consumer rewards program, that is not a single brand program, it's holistic for all the brands. You engage with Budweiser or Bud Light, for example, everything on a Budweiser or Bud Light environment. But when you become a member of the program overall. So it enables me not only to have this single view of the consumer, but also to use this asset as an organization to understand consumers better. So this was a step change. We tried consumer rewards programs in the past several times, and we understand that in the past we had the wrong premise, right? Our premise is I want to drive loyalty. Now our premise is I want to build one-to-one relationship with consumers. I want to understand consumers better. I want to be able to prove that the data that I capture drives better media efficiency, and I want to use the relationship that I have with consumers to optimize my sales package. So instead of giving a discount to a point of sale or a key account that I have in a country where I can't do that, because in the US, for example, I can't, I can give the discount directly to the consumer and see if that discount made them purchase more or less, right? I can use the assets that I have. Like we are one of the biggest sports sponsors in the world, right? I don't know any company that sponsors a bigger variety of sports and teams and athletes than we do. Maybe Nike, right? But we're not that far away from them on this. And I have tickets for the Super Bowl, for the comeback show of the Madison Square Garden, for the FIFA World Cup. I can offer fast access to bars and nightclubs in some countries. I can give you discount or even free products from our merchandising or even for beer purchase. So I can offer real value in exchange using our assets as our unfair advantage, right? So when we realize that it's not about loyalty, it's about using that as an engine to build this one-to-one relationship to the consumer and be able to augment what we have to several areas, even for supply chain at some point, that was a game changer for us. And nowadays in countries like US and Colombia and China, where we are more advanced, half of the consumer records we capture every year comes from our consumer rewards programs. But more than that, the quality of that data is much, much better than what we capture on brand promotions that we do standalone or specific lead generation campaigns.
Wow, fantastic. Yes, and one more for you, Luiz. So in terms of how you prioritize on your team, you look at it today, there's, every day there's a new streaming service out that's got ad inventory on it. There's a new app. There's a new place to go reach consumers, like definitely, literally every day these days. How do you prioritize, where is important, when you're thinking about your media plan, where is an important place to be, where is not an important place to be? How do you evaluate that?
First of all, we need to be where consumers are, right? If consumers are moving towards social media platforms or specific news channel, we need to be there, right? Of course, that brings a lot of complexity because you all remember 15 years ago, it was quite easy to do a media plan, right? You have pay TV, open TV, out of home, a few relevant channels on digital, the rest was the rest, right? Nowadays, you can be basically anywhere, right? Price of traditional media, even though audience's decline is increasing because of the demand. Inflation is also playing a big role on digital channels. So understanding where consumers are and where we are more efficient in terms of what we bring back to the organization is critical. As I said, ROI is our bread and butter, but as well, we need to look to attention because sometimes what I'm looking for in a specific campaign is not only the optimal ROI. I need to build awareness for a new product launch. And for new product launch, ROI is not my concern. Actually, usually we invest ahead of the revenue to drive trial, penetration, repurchase. So I need to make sure that for those brands, I have the right metrics. So for example, attention, as I said before, is super critical for that because I cannot build a positioning and drive interest on something new if people don't know what I'm talking about. Right.
That makes sense. And what's your key way you measure attention? Are you doing brand lift studies? Are you measuring attention directly depending on the medium? What's that look like?
Still experimenting a lot. Of course, brand lift studies are critical and we run hundreds around the world, right? For every campaign we have, being together with the platforms as a part of our negotiation with them, being standalone to be able to measure more holistically. We are working, and again, our US team is doing a very interesting work on how to measure and buy towards attention, right? So it's not only the CPM that is going to dictate where I should, where my investment will be performing better, but also the retention on the videos we have, view-through rate, viewability, right? Also, doesn't matter if I buy something nobody watches. Now we have a lot of experiments going on, some very promising ones on the pipeline, but still something that we are working to crack.
Awesome, great. I think we have a few minutes left. I don't know if we have any more questions from the audience. If my moderator friends can let me know if we do.
Hey all, thank you. That was, again, that was one of our more robust sessions. It was long, it was intense. I do need to compliment you both on having very strong beard games as well. Strongest that we've had in the 2 days.
Oh, yeah.
So that's great. Luiz, the way AB is thinking about that value exchange with consumers, that, yep, we're going to collect